you for joining us today. I'm Erika Peace, a senior product manager focusing on Unity technology and how we can use that technology to solve government and public sector challenges. Real-time 3D is being used by creators in a variety of industries to improve the world around us. This discussion will explore the ways that Unity technology and digital twins are allowing for the better understanding, development, communication of energy and environmental innovations. So before we get started, let's introduce our panel. So first up, we've got Murray Walker. Murray is the digital lead of interactive visualization for Zatari. Murray leads a team refining how engineers, designers, and clients interact with engineering. Using the power of game engines and mixed reality technology, Murray believes an unprecedented opportunity for looking at problems upon us in a whole entirely new way. Zutari as a company has won multiple green building awards and was recently ranked in 2020 as number 30 in Fortune magazine's Change of the World list. Let's take a look at a little bit about what they do.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, Erika. It's really good to be here. Zutari is a consulting engineering firm. We're headquartered in South Africa, and we have offices all over Africa and a bunch of countries in the Middle East. We are multidisciplinary. Energy is a big part of our business now. There's a big drive, especially on the African continent, to increase energy production from wind and solar. We have a lot of sun out here, so and a lot of wind in some places. And I lead the visualization team, and we use Unity to take the designs that our design teams are putting together and bring them to life, build interaction into them, allow exploration of them in more intuitive ways than 2D drawings and bad CAD renders. And we have seen a lot of uptake of it. We are really enjoying working with Unity in this way. It's super exciting to see what Unity is enabling us to do. We've been at it for about 5 years now, and we're excited to see where it takes us. Thanks again for having us here.
Thank you so much, Murray. With that, let's then go over to Sean. So Sean Jones is both a data scientist and a VR AR developer at Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult. Sean and his team at Aura Catapult are looking to use real-time 3D to help the rest of us understand the impact of offshore renewable projects, as well as improve worker safety. The offshore renewable energy catapult plays a key role in delivering on the UK's net zero targets. They bring innovation to companies, accelerating the creation and growth of the United Kingdom's offshore renewable energy. Let's hear more about what they're doing.
Yeah, hi guys. I'm Sean. I've come here from RE Catapult, as Erica just mentioned previously. We've just recently started mainly working on a lot of real-time 3D stuff using Unity and other software, and how we can use that to almost really visualize kind of elements that we want to visualize within the catapult, as well as kind of working with training projects and increasing worker safety mainly, and also improving refresher courses for workers. Thank you very much for having me here today.
Great. So we're so glad to have both of you here and to have this really exciting panel today. With that, let's go ahead and get started. So how this will work, I'll ask a couple questions. You guys will jump in and talk about things, and then we'll just wrap it up at the end. So here's the first question. Please tell us about the problems you're trying to solve. How did the creation of a digital twin help solve this problem? Murray, we'll start with you and then we'll go over to Sean.
So I think what we try to do in the day-to-day is make our design teams' jobs easier by creating these twins of the things that they're designing. So as an example, you may have seen at the beginning of the video, we had a wind turbine blade truck driving along a road. That piece of road is something that's coming out of CAD software. And we're bringing it into the engine and then driving the truck along this newly designed road. There are, because these are such long trucks, there are all kinds of specifications around how you need to design. And so we're quickly trying to test those things to find out where we've gone wrong or we've misinterpreted something. And we can quickly feed that back into the design teams and have them iterate and not make mistakes that are costly when construction is happening or even in the operation stages.
Yeah, that's interesting. So it sounds like you're using that twin to help make sure everybody's got the same understanding, kind of on the same page and explain the problem.
Yeah, we actually find flaws in our design using that tool. So, for example, those trucks are so long that if you're coming up a rise, you need to make sure that the rise is at a certain gradient. Otherwise, the truck can beach itself. The front of the truck can be over the ridge and the back can be behind, and it can actually beach itself. So we obviously want to avoid those things when they're delivering blades on site. And so we're figuring those things out in Unity as opposed to in real life. And that obviously saves us a bunch of admin down the line and money, obviously. The other thing we didn't quite anticipate, but when we have junior engineers that are learning all about these things, we actually find that they are learning way faster because they're seeing their mistakes quicker and they're understanding the constraints they're having to work in a lot more clearly. So it does.
Yeah, that's a great side effect. So Sean, how about you? Can you talk a little bit about what some of the problems you guys are trying to solve and how you're using this technology to solve them?
So recently we found a kind of a few issues with training of maintenance operators and technicians offshore and how they're conducting the training and refresher courses. Because sometimes there's not the capabilities in one country, so people have to get on a flight and then go to the country to conduct the training in like a specialized area. The same with some refresher courses as well on the opposite end, where people are doing on a computer and they're not really getting the experience or the immersion of the training itself. So our concepts recently at the moment, and again, obviously we're just getting started, we're not as a big of a foothold as like Murray does. But we're starting to and continue to look at how we can use VR for training. We've developed some prototypes already to then take to offshore operators to then discuss how we can be using these technologies to improve their kind of refresher training. And not only that, but it also makes things a lot safer because you can have you can almost simulate kind of like those dangers within the training as well. You can't really simulate yourself because obviously you don't want someone to get hurt by accident. But yeah, it's really improving that kind of like cycle.
Yeah, no, that's great. So it sounds like, especially once you guys have this training in VR, that people will be able to move in that space and really start to develop that muscle memory. So training becomes refresher training becomes more like practice
Yeah,
than.
exactly.
Oh yeah, no, that's great. So it becomes more like practice than one more training that we've all been experiencing, where you click through your cybersecurity training for the 15th time. No, that's really great. That's really interesting. So let's go on then to our second question. You've talked about some cool projects. Can you give us some examples of how you're using real-time 3D to improve decision making, or else to better explain some of the impact of decisions that you're making? Sean, do you want to go first?
Currently, we're looking at some other projects where we're similar to kind of like how Murray mentioned with using 3D to simulate kind of incidences that could happen originally. And obviously, we are involved with a lot of research and development projects, a lot of very early on stuff. And for example, a lot of those projects, when we can create a real-time 3D simulation and we can apply parameters to it, such as like wave force, weather, wave height, and kind of see how it performs in there before we actually take it out to test it, because taking it out to test it is expensive. We've got to get to the right location. We can't control the wave height to test it in certain conditions. And especially as well, then the main bit, you've got the safety of the people involved. If you want to test something in quite a high risk situation, how do you get people on board to test that with them risking injury and all the other issues? So being able to test it in 3D definitely helps with almost key decision making along those lines with how we can improve things and take things further.
Yeah, I mean, I know that especially with solar, at least here in the US, some of these projects tend to be a little controversial. I know that in the UK they're not so much, but have you found that you're able to help to ease some of the concerns that people have and just better make them understand the impact of the decision to even put, wind out, is it going to impact my beach view or those kinds of things? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, exactly. So we've used kind of like Unity, not for necessarily kind of real time kind of 3D interactable stuff, but even for just having almost like a graphic to explain and show how, oh, this is, you know, the wind turbines would look here. Even stuff where like we've got like a site and you can see then having a model of the site, then a model of the turbine in the middle, what it's going to look like. You can easily spot dangers then within that. And then moving on then to more of a public perspective, we did create a HoloLens app within Unity that was more discussing offshore wind and more of like taking away from like, you know, it's not going to cause these issues, more kind of like the advantages it brings and other benefits like jobs, obviously very stable jobs because they're there for about 25 years at a time. And then also the marine life as well. We have an aquaculture project on the go that shows how marine life's not affected as harshly as people think, and how that can also help stimulate the economy and jobs, and yeah, from there.
That's great. So Murray, can you kind of same question back to you? Give us some examples of how you're using real-time 3D to improve decision making, and then also how you're helping, how it's also helping you explain the impact to the community.
Yeah, so I think we have numerous experience with this now, where we have a group of people that will be impacted by a particular project, and they've either, rumors have cropped up, or they have expectations about what this is going to mean for them, especially from a visual perspective, and sometimes a noise perspective. And so we use it to go and communicate with them, to show them this is what this wind farm will look like from your house or from your town. With onshore wind, sometimes there's a phenomenon that you get like shadow flicker, especially early in the morning when the sun is quite low, and again in the evening. And that shadow flicker can be really disorientating. It can even cause epileptic fits when those blades are flicking around at speed. And we can simulate what that is going to look like. So, for an example, there was a wind farm close to town, and those 5 or so kilometers, those shadows from the blades can reach that far at certain times of the day. And then what does it look like? How does it going to influence people, or what's their experience of these turbines going to be like? Obviously, there's some, they're worried about the look of them on the landscape. So there's that aspect, but we can also show them what the shadow flicker is going to be like, because it really is it's a big issue, and it's really distracting and dangerous. And then some on solar projects, we can quickly simulate sun position, and so for a particular site anywhere in the world, and we can then check the shading of those PV tables, and feed that back into design. Say, no, these tables are too close together. Let's spread the rows out a bit further. We have also examples of solar where we've had to keep some trees that have to stay on site, some baobab trees. If you haven't heard of them before, they're beautiful, majestic trees that are like 1,000 years old. And so, these, obviously they want to try and preserve these, but what are the impacts of those on shading the solar? Are there wildlife corridors between the blocks of solar and beyond the solar farm, and people reaching, or animals reaching, these pockets of vegetation within the solar farm? And we can show people all of these things. The wildlife authorities understand, the community understands what it's going to look like, and decision makers, most importantly, I think, get a clearer picture, and so decision making becomes easier.
Yeah, no, that's great. That flicker, I never really thought about that before. But it sounds like then you're able to, between both of you, you're able to improve not only the decisions and impact the decisions that are being made at like a policy level and a community level, but also very tangibly in your day-to-day training as well as in your designs. Great. Um, Wonderful information. Can't wait to get to South Africa and see these trees. Um, so my next question then is, what benefits have you found using simulation and using real-time 3D? So I know, Marie, you guys are doing quite a bit of simulation in your space. Can you talk to that a little bit?
We've touched on some of it, some of the shading stuff for both for wind farms and for solar, and that's been like incredibly valuable to us. We can, I think, what we're trying to achieve broadly is speeding up iteration time and minimizing mistakes that either become an insurance claim against us because we designed something incorrectly, or it just adds delays to construction, and nobody wants any of that. So we try and use these tools, and I think Unity has become foundational for us for that. And then the things that opens up for VR, for the HoloLens stuff that Sean mentioned. You just have all these other options. You can take iPads out to communities to show them, hold it up, and they can see what's going to be developed in the area. And then we're also really excited for we don't know all the things that we can do with this yet, so we're trying to like figure those things out too. And we really feel like we're just scratching the surface as some of the hardware on the AR and VR side matures, especially on AR. I think there's going to be some really interesting stuff, and Unity for us is central to all of that. And then on pure simulation side, I think we're getting into piping real-time data from existing sites into our 3D models. Common digital twin type of thing, but with real-time information. Once something has been built, we're trying to pipe that information in, and we're sort of getting started with that now. And that can help with all sorts of insights. It can reduce things like travel. So if your site is remote, you don't have to go there. You just can visit it virtually, and you can see things in context. It helps on the training side of things to be able to see things in context. This is where this flow meter is. So when I go there, I don't have to spend time looking for it, or I have all the information there about how to service it in that space too. So that's quite interesting. It's something we're playing with at the moment.
Yeah, that's great. So Sean, I know you said that you guys are looking at some simulation things, and you talked to us about some drone simulation and what you're anticipating some of the key benefits of that would be. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, it was an idea that came from one of my managers, Ben, which was about using Unity to essentially visualize a simulation that we would have of a drone. These kind of drones help maintain or help with maintenance on the specific blades themselves, which obviously normally getting on a blade as a person, you've got to have your harness and you've got to like clamp to so many things. There's quite a lot of things that can go wrong. So obviously having this drone there would be a massive benefit to technicians. But again, being able to test that drone constantly is not feasible in a real world situation, because you can't just keep shutting off turbines. You can't keep sending people out with a drone. So essentially, yeah, we did want to almost have kind of like a data-driven simulation using Unity on the front end for visualization to kind of, so then we can see kind of how that drone is reacting. And I kind of feel that go along with some of other Murray's simulations that he was discussing earlier, just having that visual aspect to them makes everything just a lot more kind of like you can soak in the data a lot more than just seeing numbers or figures on a graph. You can kind of really see what's happening. And I think that's the main advantage to data. It does seem sometimes a little bit gimmicky, and you think of it in your head, oh no, I wouldn't find that useful. But then when you do actually implement it, it is genuinely like a really useful bit of software.
Well, that's great for the rest of us. I mean, you're a data scientist, so if you're saying it, then I really feel more comfortable, like that it's not just that it's helping me as somebody who's not a data scientist understand, but if data scientists are saying it's helping them, then I'm sold, right? So just hearing the things you guys are saying, it's all stuff that we all know our leadership wants to hear, right? I heard you, Murray, talking about it's faster. Well, faster saves money and saves time, and in any of our businesses, that's essential to success. And then, of course, insurance claims, again, saving money, improving safety. Even with this drone simulation, I've got no concept of how long it might take to run that drone, but if you're doing simulation, what might take you 3 or 4 hours you could probably do like a year's worth of these tests in like an hour or two. So that's,
Exactly, yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's really just kind of hitting to all those things, with design flaws. I think you talked about earlier, Murray, where that's solving a problem in design versus trying to go back and fix a road once a truck's beached, which again, didn't know trucks beached. But again, it's super interesting. So just kind of speeding all of that up and saving cost and money, I think is essential. So, we're almost out of time. So let me go to my last question. So each of you in your own way and the companies you're doing are using, real-time 3D, AR, digital twins to solve pieces of the climate crisis. Um, so talk about your vision for how your work contributes to, a more sustainable and a client safe future. Um, who wants to go first?
Sure, I'll go. I think we've touched on it a bunch of times already, but saving money makes these things more viable. So we've reached in South Africa, for instance, solar power is just way cheaper than coal, even though we burn a lot of coal to heat our homes and cook our food. But it's reached that point now where it's cheaper, and I think this is helping in a sense. I mean, it's small. I'm not don't have such grand delusions, but I think these things always help in their own little way to make it quicker, make the decision makers faster, make them more or less risky, and to save money. And hopefully, that can help to accelerate adoption and rollout of solar and wind.
Yeah, Sean, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with Murray on the cost sense. Kind of more from what I'm looking at the moment with training, especially. Simply, if a technician is at home, we can simply post them all in one VR headset with some training software on. Someone else can remote in on an iPad and watch them conduct the training to make sure it's all being done correctly. They also get that kind of muscle memory, kind of with the proper interactions. And of course, that's a lot cheaper than especially having someone go on a plane to like Denmark or something from the UK to go and conduct training for a few weeks, than having to come all the way back. It's much more cost effective and it can be done a lot quicker, and the technician can get right back out there. And example on the boats, that where you take the boats to the turbine. So I was discussing with my colleague Tony earlier today about how on in between those kind of transfers, a lot of the technicians there, they're still doing work, but they're not doing hyper intense work. So they could conduct their refresher course on the way there, essentially on the boat. And then when they come back, they haven't got to worry about that kind of doing that refresher training. They can just relax and enjoy their life. They don't have to commit 100% of their time to work. So it makes their life a lot better as well, and also saves money.
That's great. So as we, just to kind of wrap that up, first off, I want to thank you both. This has been so great and so enjoyable meeting you and talking to you. Look forward to keeping further in touch and continuing these conversations with everyone. So hearing your stories, I'm taking away like something really, really key. Um, in the technology field, it's rare that we feel like we have some impact on things like climate and making the world better. But it sounds like what you're doing can help to change the economics. And now, mind you, it's in a small way, but everything that we can do to lower the overall cost of renewables and wind and change the economics helps with the whole system. So again, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you again for having me.